My name's Renee Essary, and I'm a Air Force veteran and a volunteer here at the St. Charles County Veterans Museum. One of the great stories that we have here at the museum is about a combat medic. His name is Matthew Sims. And Matt's last deployment was in around 2005. Some of the things that I think are really interesting about Matt is why he wanted to become a medic. And he tells a story that he wanted to be a superhero. And so for him, a medic, almost a superhero type of person that's there for all of their troops. And as you read some of the stories with him, you get lots of letters of thank you from the people that he saved their lives or helped them or inspired them to be the best soldiers and the best at their field that they were doing, and all of that inspiration came from Matthew. So this is the story of Matt Sims that I like to tell here at the museum. We have a book that he wrote with some of his experiences, and he is a 3-time Purple Heart recipient. So the first Purple Heart that he earned, he was in an ambulance surrounded by some armored vehicles when an IUD went off. And in that, he had multiple injuries, one of them being that he had shrapnel in his lungs. And here at the museum, we have the uniform that he was wearing that day, so you can kind of see where those wounds came from, along with a vial of some of the shrapnel that they took from his lungs. The second Purple Heart that he earned, he was in an armored vehicle. He had on all of his gear, he had on his helmet, and he was shot in the head. Luckily he had his helmet on, but it did knock him unconscious. He fell into the tank and broke his neck, along with some other injuries. He had his surgeries and recovery there at the hospital, and then came back to his unit. You would think that is a very bad injury, and you would probably want to go home after sustaining an injury like that, but not Matt. Matt wanted to go back to his unit. He didn't want to go home. And so, again, he is taken to the hospital and has his surgeries and does his recuperating. And even after that, you would think, well, maybe he's going to go home, but not Matt. Again, he requested to go back to his unit. And so his commanding officer sent him back again. The third Purple Heart that he earned, they were on patrol when they took on some mortar fire, and he also was wounded there in the leg and had some significant wounds there. So this is someone very dedicated to the mission that they had at hand, and every time he was wounded just wanted to go back, not because he wanted to go back to war, but he wanted to go back to his people, his guys, his troops, because he really felt like he was there to get them through. And a lot of them in their letters to him indicated that. So Matt's total deployment time over there was about a year that he was deployed into Iraq, where all of those things happened to him. He also attributes his speedy recoveries to the dedication and the professionalism of the medical teams there that they had. And he said, you know, what was interesting was some of the people that were working on him were people that he trained. So he knew he was getting the best care that he could possibly get. When you think about why we were there, there's lots of theories, everyone has an opinion, but one of the best stories that I know of why we were in Iraq comes from one of Matt Sims' stories. And this story to me is probably one of the most powerful. They were on patrol, it was around Christmas time, and they were there to make sure that the people could vote for the first time. They were there to maintain the order, to provide the opportunity for the villagers to vote. He got into place, he had his ambulance ready, got all of his equipment ready, not knowing what was going to happen. Even the villagers and the people there in the town were nervous and scared, but also excited that, especially the women, that they would have the right to vote for the first time in the history of their country. And Matt says that as he was kind of ready and everything, he hears medic, medic, medic. He thought, wow, this was kind of quick, you know, that they're already needing me. And as they they came up, they were bringing a very pregnant woman. And Matt says that, you know, of all the things that he had been taught in the military on being a combat medic, he was glad that he had a little bit of instructions on how to deliver a baby, but that wasn't one of the things that they practiced regularly. So he really had to go back on his training to know exactly how to do it and what to do. But he delivered that baby for not only this woman, but, you know, her husband was there as well. They both came. And so while she was standing in line, she went into labor. They brought her to him. He delivered the baby. And then they asked Matt to hold on to the baby while they got back in line to vote. I always like to tell the story of what woman in America would give her newborn baby over to a stranger from another country in a military uniform with an M16 or something, you know, on his shoulders while they go vote. And he said it was probably one of the best Christmas gifts he ever was given, because it really put into perspective why they were there and what they were doing there. You know, and it was helping these people in Iraq. It was helping to give them a framework for making their country a better country. What's really interesting to take into account for them as a unit, this was just right after Christmas. They had just, I think he says 17 days prior, they had lost one of their brothers in a firefight. And so they were all pretty down in the dumps. They were focused on the loss that they had, you know, been going through with the loss of their friend James. And then for this event to happen where they deliver this baby, he said it really changed them a lot, and it ended up being such a great Christmas present because it got them to focus on the new birth and the renewal and what could be. They still were heartbroken at the loss of their friend, but it got them to move from that grief and that loss to this hope and renewal of new life. When you hear some of the rest of Matt's stories, it's really best to hear the contributions that he made to the people that, you know, he served with. So the best way to tell you what Matt meant to the people that he served with is to read a couple of the letters that was written to him after he retired, after 22 years of serving in the Army. So here's one letter from Thomas. Dear Mr. Sims, my name is Thomas Miner, and you saved my son Larry's life in Iraq. I was told that you retired from service recently, and I want to take this opportunity to thank you. Because of what you did for Larry, I have been able to spend each and every Christmas with him for the past 10 years. He is alive today because of you, and he now has a wife and 2 children. I love my grandchildren more than anything, and without you, none of this would have been possible. I hope you continue to find happiness because you have made me the luckiest dad in the world. To my guardian angel, thank you, Thomas. To Doc Sims, I don't think I could ever express to you how grateful I am to have served with you. First and foremost, thank you for saving my life. You risked your life to save me, and I can never repay you. I get to be a dad to my 2 girls because of you. I get to be a husband because of you. I get to be a son to my parents because of you. I treasure each day, and one thing I promise is that I will pay it forward each and every day. God bless you, and God bless America. Hawk 6D. But just because Matt retired from the service didn't mean that he was going to stop serving. And here's a letter that he also got. Dear Mr. Sims, although we have never spoken, we have met. Back in 2015, you saved my life on Interstate 40 in Arkansas when I wrecked my car and was pinned under my truck. I'm sure you remember that night better than I do. I do not remember much from that night, but what I do remember is seeing you and you telling me that you were there to help. I don't know if it was because of my injuries or if God himself was using you as one of his angels that night, but I remember seeing a bright light behind you the entire time you were helping me, like you were glowing. My family and I are so very grateful that you were driving behind me that evening. We can never repay you for what you did. All I can say is thank you. I want to take the opportunity to say thank you for your service to our country, and I hope you find the happiness and the riches in all that you do. Your eternal friend, Walter. I'm glad that I got to tell you about Matt and why he's one of my favorites. A medic or corpsman touches so many lives, and Matt is just one of the many, many heroes that we feature here at the St. Charles County Veterans Museum, and one of my favorite stories. We also have his book, and he comes into town from time to time, so we can always get you a signed copy if you wanted to read more about him. And he recently wrote another book that tells the story of all of the medics that were killed in Iraq and in the Persian Gulf Wars. A very dedicated man to his brothers and sisters in arms and to his local community members, and he's always there to help any way that he possibly can. So I hope you enjoyed this story, and I hope it brings you to the museum where you can see all about Matt and get a little story and taste of his life.